welcome. We are on the series Julius Caesar, and we are done with the main part of the play, the text of the play, all the 5 acts and all the scenes in them. And now we're going to do the character analysis of the play's main characters, namely Antony, Brutus, and Caesar himself. This is presented by me, Palak Sharma. Few things about me: I'm an economics honors student, a poet at heart, a theatre geek, a mixture of Keats and Shakespeare. And once you're done watching this lesson in the series, do not forget the 3 R's: rate, review, recommend, and share this lesson. And you can follow me on Unacademy. Here's my link. Now, when we come to the main characters, we know there are 3 important characters of the play. There's Brutus, the nobleman, honorable man. There's Caesar, the ambitious king. And there's Antony, the loyal friend and the avenger, we can say, the one who takes revenge against Caesar's assassination. So firstly, we'll start with Brutus. Now, Brutus, he's the most complex character in the Caesar's play, and he also plays the most tragic hero. So in his soliloquies, the audience, they gain insight into the complexities of his motive. He's a powerful public figure, as we all know, and we can see he's also appearing as a husband. He's a master to his servants. He's a dignified military leader and a loving friend to Caesar. The conflicting value systems that battle with each other in the play, as a whole, they are enacted on a microscopic level in Brutus's mind. So what is on the whole stage, it's also in Brutus's mind. Even after Brutus has committed the assassination with the other members of the conspiracy, questions, they still remain as to whether Brutus, or in light of his friendship with Caesar, the murder was a noble thing, decidedly selfless act, or proof of a truly evil thing to do. There's a gross indifference to the ties of friendship, and there's also failure to be moved by the power of a truly great man like Brutus. So Brutus's rigid idealism, the one he has, it is both his greatest virtue and his deadly flaw. In the world of the play, where self-serving ambition seems to dominate all other motivations, Brutus lives up to Antony's elegiac description, like when he says, the noblest of the Romans. However, his commitment to principle, it repeatedly leads him to make miscalculations, like wanting to curtail violence. He ignores Cassius's suggestions that the conspirators kill Antony as well as Caesar. And in another moment of naive idealism, he again ignores Cassius's advice and allows Antony to speak a funeral oration over Caesar's body. And as a result, Brutus forfeits the authority of having the last word on the murder. So we can say that he thus allows Antony to incite the common people, the plebeians, to riot against the conspirators, and Brutus later endangers his good friendship with Cassius also. By self-righteously, he condemns that what he sees as a dishonorable fundraising tactics on Cassius's part, taking bribes and all. He even condemns that thing. So in all of these episodes, Brutus acts out as someone who has a desire to limit the self-serving aspect of his action. And ironically, however, in each accident and each incident, he dooms the very cause that he seeks to promote. He is the one who propagates not to murder Caesar, to be loyal to the country, and yet he is the one who kills Caesar, who is a part of the assassination. So he's serving no one at all. So that's that about Brutus. Now we come to the main character, Caesar, or the ambitious ruler. So the conspirators charge Caesar with ambition, right? And his behavior, it substantiates this judgment that he does away for absolute power over Rome, and he revel in the homage he received from others. And in his conception of himself, he's a figure who will live on forever in men's mind. But however, his faith in his own permanence, that in the sense of both his loyalty to principles and his fixture as a public institution, it eventually proves his undoing. At first, he stubbornly refuses to heed the nightmares of his wife California and the supernatural omens that are kind of plaguing California in the night. And though he is eventually persuaded not to go to Senate, Caesar ultimately lets his ambition get the better of him. So as the prospect of being crowned king, he finds it too glorious to resist an offer. So he goes to the Senate after knowing that he's going to be crowned the fourth time. And Caesar's conflation of his public image with his private self, this helps bring about his death, since he mistakenly believes that the immortal status that is granted to his public self somehow protects his mortal body. So still in many ways, Caesar's faith that he is eternal proves valid by the end of the play. Because in Act 5th and Scene 3rd, we have seen that Brutus is attributing his and Cassius's misfortunes to Caesar's power, reaching even beyond the grave. Even out of the grave, Caesar is mighty. So Caesar's aura, it seems to affect the general outcome of events in a mystic manner. And we all know that while he's also inspiring Octavius and Antony and strengthening their determinations also. So as Octavius ultimately assumes the title Caesar, Caesar's permanence is indeed established in some respect or the other. And the next character who's very important in a metaphorical way, it's Antony. He is the stronger one out of all those people. So Antony proves strong in all the ways that Brutus proves weak. He's impulsive. He is an improvisatory. He is a consummate politician. His nature serves him perfectly. He first tries to persuade the conspirators that he's on their side, so he thus gains their leniency. And then to persuade the plebeians that the conspirators are doing injustice, and thus he gains the masses' political support. So he's not too scrupulous to stoop to deceit and duplicity, as Brutus says he is. And Antony proves himself a consummate politician. He uses gestures, he uses skilled rhetoric to his advantage, and he responds to subtle cues among both his nemesis and his allies, the ones who support him, the one who is against him, and he knows exactly how he must conduct himself at each particular moment in order to gain the most advantage. So we see that in both his eulogy for Caesar and the play as a whole, Antony is adept at tailoring his words and actions to his audience's desire. And unlike Brutus, who prides himself on acting solely with respect to virtue and blinding himself to his personal concerns, Antony never separates. He has no distinction between his private and his public life. He has no separate distinction between the two. He just lives life. Then we come on the thematic analysis. Now, Julius Caesar is a play about political power and how it may be legitimately or illegitimately wielded. So it also shows that the role of what we now call a public opinion, which in this play it is embodied in the gut responses of the common folk, the plebeians. The play also raises many questions that who is the play's central character? We are not yet aware. Who is the central character? Is it Caesar, who is the great leader? Or is it Brutus, the idealist and the man of honor who faces an ethical dilemma? Or is it Cassius, the arch conspirator? Or is it Antony, the royal henchman and the brilliant manipulator of the mob? So we have several questions like, were the conspirators justified in their assassination of Caesar? Or like how in the end should Rome or any other society be governed actually? So there may be no simple answer to any of these questions, but Shakespeare presents a many-sided picture in which all the characters' strengths, their weaknesses are clearly shown. Caesar is an authoritarian person, an arrogant leader who rules with a firm but not an unjust hand. Brutus is a man of conscience. He's concerned about his public duty and he's willing to take action that he feels is good for the common people. But he's not suited to running a government. He's too concerned with upholding his own sense of nobility and his own sense of honor, and he makes many tactical errors. Cassius, he's an intellectual who is aware of the dangers presented by an authoritarian leader like Caesar, and he concentrates his power on several things like he's trying to kill Caesar. And yet Cassius, he's also tainted by envy and jealousy. And as for Antony, he is a loyal friend to Caesar, but he's also a ruthless and cunning person. Today, we might call him a demagogue, like one who is willing and able to use his oratorical powers to fire up the mob and get them to do what he wants actually. So if the major characters are all flawed in one way or the other, Shakespeare, he also shows the fickleness of public opinion. One moment the crowd is cheering Caesar, but it doesn't take any long for Brutus to persuade them that Caesar was too hungry for power and he deserved his fate. But then Antony soon manipulates the crowd on the other way, and the mob goes on a rampage against the conspirators. So, this shows how politicians may shape and use the sentiments of ordinary people in service of their own goals. And no one in the play shows any respect for common people. Like you can see Casca, the speech in Act First and Scene Second, or we can see the attitude of Flavius and Murilus in the first act. Even then, we saw that. So, what we conclude that one way of judging an action is to look at the result it produces. So, Cassius and Brutus, they commit a crime. They are committing a crime, an act of violence, to keep Rome free, and they end up with chaos and civil war. So, in effect, they go to war by killing Caesar to keep the peace, which is then used by politicians. It's usually a very specious argument that you cannot use violence to bring peace. And although Caesar, he's presented as an arrogant person and he shows no mercy or flexibility when petitioned, then he's also a man who knows how to wield power. And he is a formidable military commander, and most people think that except for Cassius, they respect him. Caesar is being respected by most people. He has an aura around him, and Brutus himself can think of no accusation to charge Caesar with, except that they imagined fear of what Caesar might do if his power continued to grow, in a multiple way. So, and Brutus, this is a very weak argument, surely, and Brutus, for all his nobility, he doesn't seem to realize that he continually allows himself to be manipulated by stronger or more ruthless personalities like, we can say, Cassius and Antony too. And as so often in such situations, the conspirators fall victim to what is called the law of unintended consequences. So no one can predict with certainty the consequences of such a momentous act as the assassination of a powerful political and military leader. And certainly history has judged Brutus and Cassius harshly as traitors. But then, as someone once remarked, history is written by the winners. So no one knows, of course, how Caesar would have behaved had he lived. And Shakespeare leaves us with such a full sense of the humanity of all the characters that definitive judgment about who is right and who is wrong, we may not be doing justice to the complexities of life and politics and human motivations. So we are not sure. We cannot take any side in this place. So this is it. Then thanks a lot. We'll be dealing more in the details of the play in the next lesson. So thank you. Rate, review, recommend, and share the lesson.